Everybody's having a really good day. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is day 2 of Module 2, Lesson 4. We're continuing to talk about, is the Constitution just or not? We're going to finish up the notebook today. And then we're going to review for the Module 2 assessment, so the larger assessment. Okay, I'll have your review sheet. We'll do a little Kahoot. Apologize for the afternoon yawns. Also, it is end of the quarter, so I'll go over what's still open, and if there's extra time, I'll review really quick those superhero instructions, because I've only received about half of the project, so I definitely would like to get more of those in, because it'll definitely help with your grade. Okay, if you're just joining us, welcome. Please go ahead and get your notebook open. We're getting started, all right? So really quick in the chat today, well, I guess technically the 28th, so I'm kind of using it for both day, is National Self-Awareness Day, all right? How could we apply that to school? What's something that maybe you could be more self-aware of in school? Maybe it's being on time to class. Maybe it's your due dates. Maybe it's focusing during class. Maybe it's that you're doing a really good job. You're keeping your goals and you're on it, you know? Grades where I'm at. Yeah, so maybe every Wednesday you check your grades, you know, in Canvas, something like that. Maintaining. Okay, yeah. So maybe making a list. Maybe it's having a calendar. Like, how do you organize yourself the best? Even though I'm online, I actually still organize myself better on paper. And so I still have a paper calendar that I write things down on and my to-do list for the day and things like that. And it just helps me kind of it just helps, right? It helps kind of keep yourself on track. So if that works for you, like, do it. You know, this was the best $10 investment I made for the year, literally off Amazon. And you can get them cute too. Like, see, mine has like little flowers and stuff like that. So it tells like what lesson I'm doing when I got meetings, things like that. If organization's a problem for you, I encourage maybe try getting a paper form. It's stuff that can be really, really helpful, a calendar. If it's checking your grades, you kind of just live in the dark about it. Every Wednesday or every Monday, go in and check those grades. You know, ignoring them doesn't make them go up, right? So, just leads to bad conversations at the end of the quarter with parents, right? Why are these good? You know, so ideas and things like that. What else could we be more aware of with school? Anyone struggle maybe like sleep, like, you know, maybe needing to get more sleep? You know what I started doing? My phone goes into sleep mode at 10 o'clock. So I've made a rule that I can't be on my phone past 10 o'clock. Because I don't know about you ever get in bed and then you just start looking at reels? And before you know it, like an hour's gone by. You should do that. It really helps. So like once it goes into sleep mode, I can't be on my phone between 10 and 6, you know, and it really helps. Communication. Yes, I think there are students that, you know, that could definitely be something that would be helpful to students, right? Reaching out to your teachers more when you're struggling, you know, that is one of the obstacles of being online. I think when you're in brick and mortar, it's easier for teachers and students to communicate, right? You're in the class, we're on you a little bit more. It is harder online, you know, you do have to self-advocate more. Hey, everybody, welcome. So please try to be aware of time from now on. Okay, we start at 12:20, so please make sure that you're trying to get into class on time. Okay. All right. That's something 5th period could improve upon. You guys trickle in like water. All right. So please try to be aware of if you got to set timer, you know, so if time is your issue, get into class on time, you know, during lunch with me, I set a timer 3 minutes before I need to be online. So that beep, beep, beep. So whatever I'm doing, I get back to my computer and I'm ready to go. Cause it is easy to lose track of time, you know, so maybe that's something that you can apply or be more aware of with school. Anything else? They're all good things. And believe me, it's tough even as a teacher. Time, I definitely set myself alarms. You know, that definitely helps. To-do lists, that really helps me. Just making I stay on track. Work-life deadlines. Yes, work-life deadlines. That, you know, once you finish school and you start working full-time, or if you go to college, whenever you start working, you just trade school deadlines for work deadlines. So the deadlines never go away. And then as your life gets more complicated and you have a partner, if you ever have kids, if you do all that kind of stuff, then even more stuff gets added to your, you know, your to-do list. So, and they start to overlap a lot. I often work after my kids go to bed. So like I'll work till the school day's done and I pick up my kids. I start round 2, got to do all my stuff with them. And then once I put them to bed, I'll work from like 9 to 10 just to help kind of get my to-do list done, you know, because during the day I get interrupted a lot. So sometimes you have to break it up. Anybody else? Anything else you could work on? How could you be more self-aware and how could apply it to school? Anybody else? Elena, Ladybug, thanks for sharing. Great ideas. We can all do it. It's not meant just towards students. Definitely something I can work on as well. Okay, so we are going to continue the discussion of, did the Constitution establish a just government? Okay, so we're going to get our notebooks open. There are 7 articles in the Constitution, meaning 7 parts to the Constitution. Okay, Article 1 is about the legislative branch, so laying out the legislative responsibilities. Remember, that's the House and the Senate. Article 2 is the executive branch. So that's the presidency, right? And those 15 cabinets that fall under the president, okay? And the money that goes out and things like that, and over the military, stuff like that. The judicial branch. So this is talking about the Supreme Court all the way down, okay? So the Supreme Court all the way down. So I'm going to say it one more time. Please, everybody, try to get to class on time, all right? We're 10 minutes into class, and in the last 5 minutes, I've had more people come into class than in the first 5 minutes. So please try to make sure that we're coming into class on time, all right? Because you're missing intro stuff, and then it makes me have to repeat myself. So please try to be prompt. All right, that would be awesome. And I do give it a couple of minutes beginning of class for people to get in. So please try to make sure that you're coming in 12:20, okay, on Wednesday, Thursdays. So the fourth section is the relationship between the federal government and the states. So who can do what and what that relationship looks like. The fifth section is how to change the Constitution. Yes, the Constitution's been changed 27 times. So there's been 27 amendments, AKA changes to the Constitution. It's a hard process, but it can be changed. Article 6 deals with supreme law. Okay, so how laws are made and what it looks like. And then Article 7 is ratification, how this was made official. So how laws and how the Constitution, how changes, how things are made official within the Constitution. All right, so a little breakdown of the structure of the Constitution. All right, so we need to have our notebooks open. I'm going to go over into Canvas, all right, where we were yesterday. And we're in Module 2, Lesson 4. We're on the Reading tab, all right? And we started with the key question is the Constitution just? Did it create a just government? And by just, that doesn't mean perfect. That doesn't mean unchanging, but something that can be worked with, something that can be seen as fair. And it may be, and the answer to that really is going to depend, right? It depends on maybe when in history, maybe your political views. So we're not necessarily looking for an all or nothing answer, but an analytical answer, right? You know, where we see maybe where parts of it are just, or maybe areas where we would like to see improvement, or things like that. Nothing is perfect because it is created by humans, right? Who we are flawed, and we take anything that's perfect and we find a way to muck it up, all right? In our notebook, we did, again, the essential question, and then we talked about the key reasons why they needed to write a new constitution, why the Articles of Confederation didn't work, right? Weak central government, inability to raise taxes. States were being very unfair with their taxes. No standing army, no ability to, protect borders and stuff, which is important. And need for a balance of power. Someone has to be in charge. So as we go into number 3, all right, let's get a thumbs up that you have your notebook open and you're ready to go. Notebook open, you're ready to go. We're going to work on 3, 4, and 5. I got a little video in your pod to do as we go through. We'll do some Kahoots, reviewing for your quiz. Awesome. All right. So the next part is the structure of the Constitution. Okay, how is the Constitution structured? How did they structure the government? And basically the structure of the Constitution is to literally outline this new federal central government that they were creating and how it would work and how they would create those checks and balances so that no one branch or person or party, right, could take over or become tyrannical. All right, so let me show you. So you can create an image. You can create lists if you want. So my image, I don't think it's going to share in the chat. Yeah, it's not going to share in the chat. Okay, so what you can do is if you want, you could just create lists. As I go through each one, you could put Article 1, legislative, put the 3 parts, Article 2, executive, put what's under that. So you could create this just in lists if you want. Okay, so for example, what I mean by that is underneath the image, well, I did an image, but oh, oops. Okay, Let me see here. Doesn't want to let me write underneath it. Oh, come on. Okay, I'll do it above the image. Oh, seriously. Okay.
I'm sorry, but could you zoom in on the
Yes, I can. Of course.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. Hopefully that's a little better. Okay, so if you want, you can create a title for each one in a list. So you could do like Article 1, legislative, and then put the 3 major responsibilities underneath it. Article 2, and then executive branch, and then make the list underneath it. So you can create an image if you want, okay, to show structure, or you can do lists, all right? So for example, Article 1, let's go over it. Article 1, okay, that is legislative branch. And so that's going to be bicameral. Which is the House and the Senate. Okay, they have lots of power to make laws. And there are 10 sections to this article. So basically you could break it up like that, okay, and just make a list and separate each part, okay? Article 2 is the executive branch, okay? So I'm not going to type this in there. I'll let you do that, but I just did that in the chat so you could kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about, okay? Article 2 is the executive branch. So this is the president, the vice president, okay? So the president obviously is the most powerful position and figurehead of our country. So if we were to have a monarch, that would be like the president, but we don't. We specifically didn't want a monarch because we wanted the ability for that position to be changed out, right? That no one person was permanent, okay, or made the laws. That an elected body made the laws, and that person who is president can be removed, and with seasons in time, right, can be taken out and removed and replaced by someone else elected by the people. Okay, there are limited powers, right? The president is over the military. They are able to they're able to appoint positions, justices, but they have to be approved by the Senate. Okay, and there are 4 sections to Article 2. So outlining their power, the express power, implied power, how they can be removed, and stuff is important. Article 3, judicial branch. Okay, this has the Supreme Court. So the highest court of the land, right, which is responsible for interpreting the Constitution and making sure that the actions of the other 2 branches, the legislative and executive, right, are within the Constitution. They're not overstepping their power. All right. Also establishes jurisdictions. Okay, so the different levels of the courts and when certain courts should hear certain cases. So help give some guidance for that. And then finally, let me scroll up here because we're just going to do the first 4. The 4th section or article of the Constitution, okay, relates to the states. So full faith and credit, you know, what the states are allowed to do, not to do the privileges and the immunities of the states. Okay, so what privileges the states have, what they're able to do independently from the federal government. So how that power is shared is very important. All right, so I'll leave this up for a minute. And again, I would just create those 4 lists. That's probably the easiest way to do it. You don't have to make an organizer if you don't want to. If you want to, you can, as long as you just separate them. Yeah, as long as you separate them, so you could do a list, a list, a list. That's totally fine as well. So yes, go ahead.
What if we copy it like the
What if you what?
What if we copy it like the way you got it?
That's fine. That's fine. So if you want to copy it, you can do it that way, or you can just take the information and create lists. Either way is fine. I just don't want like one big blob, right? So we want it organized to separate those powers. Okay. All right. Give me a thumbs up once you have the 4 articles. So I'm going to give you a minute. I'm going to put my dog outside. Okay, I'll be back in 1 minute, finish this, and then we're going to move on. Okay. How are we doing? Give me feedback. Do we need more time? Give me thumbs down if you need more time. Thumbs up if you're good. Okay, I've got like 3 people responding. We got 25 people in this meet. So where's everybody else at? Do we need more time? Thank you. Yeah, just let me know. Give me a thumbs down and then I can give more time. But when I get no response, you got a picture? Okay, so you can write it down later. That's fine. Okay, I'm going to keep going. All right. So yeah, if you didn't get this all down, then take a picture of it and then you can come back. And again, you can create a graphic organizer or you can just do separate lists. Okay, just make sure that it's separate in order to put them in order: Article 1, Article 2, Article 3, Article 4. And that's totally fine. And then just list a brief abbreviation under it of what it would be about. Okay, let's keep going. The next section is talking about then what were the framers' intentions? Okay, so what were the framers' intention? What were they including, not including? We're going to do a quick Nearpod, takes about 5 minutes, and there's some pauses of questions which we'll communicate through the chat doing that. Okay, so please respond and engage, and then we'll come back and we can answer this question about how did the framers protect slavery in the Constitution? All right, so go over to this Nearpod. All right, here we go. And instead of doing live participation, I'm going to play it. And then as we pause with some of the prompts and stuff, we can discuss it either on mute or you can put it in the chat. All right, here we go.
In the summer of 1787, Philadelphia was roasting under a heat wave. But day after day, a group of men kept the windows of the State House firmly shut. They feared that if word got out about what they were discussing there, revolt could ensue, so they debated and sweated in secret. They wanted no one to know that they were crafting a new United States Constitution. The Constitutional Convention, unpacked.
Okay, so first question. What do you know about the Constitutional Convention? We talked about this briefly in Module 1. Do you know anything about the Constitutional Convention? Yes, it was a secret. It was a secret. It was top secret. Why do you think maybe it would be top secret? Why would we keep it a secret? Why not make this open and clear?
Because maybe some people wouldn't agree with it.
It was controversial. You know, we were at a kind of a tipping point. A lot of people agreed that the Articles of Confederation wasn't working, but then the idea of taking power away from the states, a lot of people didn't like that idea. And that certainly was the goal of the new Constitution, the Federalists, right, to create a central federal government. Yes, go ahead.
I think it was top secret because it was a place where the central government would talk about things for the Articles of Confederation.
Yes, so the Articles of Confederation had been written, so they were basically taking this. The original goal was to modify it, right? But then quickly realized that it couldn't be modified because you had to have all 13 representatives agree, and they couldn't agree on anything. So it's like when you come to an impasse, sometimes you have to just kind of scrap and start over. So this was top secret because, again, very controversial, and states, a lot of, opinions were that the states didn't want to give up power. All right, very good.
More than 10 years before that pivotal summer, the American colonies had declared themselves united. They established a government, the Continental Congress, and drew up a constitution, the Articles of Confederation. This constitution enabled them to declare war and coordinate military efforts against Britain. Otherwise, it was intentionally weak. Having declared independence from a government they considered tyrannical, Americans didn't want to lock themselves into a similar situation. As for the new states, they weren't actually that united. In fact, they functioned more like separate countries. In post-revolution America, the system wasn't working out so well. The country owed war debt, but the government, now called the Confederation Congress, had no power to collect taxes. Nor could it regulate commerce, support an army, or protect people from oppressive state laws. Many people feared that without a stronger government, the country would fall apart. The Confederation Congress thus authorized a convention to revise the Articles of Confederation. Every state, except Rhode Island, sent delegates, 55 total. George Washington was chosen to preside over the revising process. But some delegates, most notably James Madison, arrived at the convention with a different plan. They felt that the article should be replaced with a completely new constitution. Though it went against the original directive, this measure was voted upon and accepted, hence the sealed windows.
So which of these best characterized the United States government at the time between the Revolution, so the American Revolution, and the Constitutional Convention? Stable and balanced, weak and ineffective, tyrannical and oppressive, rigid and legalistic. What do we think? A, B, C, or D? So Elena says B. Let's get a few more votes.
B.
B, okay. Misha B, Trista B, awesome. B, all right. Yep. So we were not in a good state. Yeah, we were weak and ineffective, okay? Everyone was kind of functioning independently. So it's like in name we were united, but everything else in action and everything else, right? We were doing our own thing. We weren't truly a united front and stuff. So something had to change. And again, the original plan of adjusting the articles quickly became the realization that that wasn't going to be enough. They weren't going to accomplish what they needed to do. All right.
The delegates understood the dangers of consolidating authority within a singular government body, so they agreed to distribute federal power among 3 government branches: the judicial, executive, and legislative. Furthermore, the legislative branch would itself be split, sharing power between the House of Representatives and the Senate. However, extreme contention arose over congressional seats. Some delegates wanted each state to have the same number of seats, ensuring each state would have equal representation. Others wanted to base the number of seats per state on that state's population, ensuring more accurate representation of the country's people. This issue threatened to create gridlock, but eventually the delegates worked it out with the Connecticut Compromise, which established equal representation in the Senate and proportional representation in the House. But now, another issue arose. Southern delegates recognized the new government could threaten their peculiar institution, slavery. To ensure a House majority, they pushed to include enslaved people in their population counts. Northern delegates rejected this. Ultimately, the 3/5 compromise was reached. Enslaver states would include 3/5 of their enslaved population in their total population counts. As a further concession, it was agreed that the United States would not outlaw the importation of persons until at least 1808. The framers intentionally excluded the word slaves and slavery from the Constitution.
Why do you think the delegates directly or omitted direct mention of slavery in the Constitution? So it's certainly implied, right? It's implied through the 3/5 count in population to therefore determine how many representatives states would have, in particular the southern states. Most of the northern states at that point, little to no slavery. It was the southern states that really pushed this and stuff. But why omit the direct mention of slavery? Omit means to not put in, to not mention. Like I don't say the word on purpose. So they said persons instead of slaves. Any guesses? Got real quiet. Yeah, you get into, because there was a this was, as they say, and again, it's obviously it's a hard thing to hear. Nobody wants to hear about compromise with slavery and stuff like that, but this was what they were trying to do to get the document passed. So by incorporating it in a way that it was mentioned in state count, but also appeasing the northern states who in the end wanted to outlaw slavery. So it became, again, even the usage of words became a compromise of what was being intended. Yes, and there is absolutely a contradiction going on, right? Where you are allowing for a few more decades, because this was in the late 1700s, saying, okay, for at least the next couple decades, people can be imported, all right, all knowing exactly what that means, while also trying to put some end to it and stuff. So this was a very hot button of contention for sure, which again, when we talk about amendments, we'll see amendments later after the Civil War.
A third debate concerned the office of the executive. Some delegates felt that the executive branch would be most stable if it were led by one individual. Others, wary of king-like tyranny, preferred a council. In the final days of the convention, an agreement was finally reached. A president would lead the executive branch. On September 17th, 39 delegates signed the US Constitution, and the convention ended at last. But the Constitution's path was just beginning. The framers knew the document was far from perfect. They also knew that life would change in ways they couldn't imagine. Article 5 sets forth the procedure for amending the Constitution, making it a living document. In fact, the first 10 amendments, known as the Bill of Rights, were added before the Constitution was even ratified. Despite the bitter debates and the heat, the convention delegates succeeded. Many consider the Constitution an extraordinary achievement, perhaps even a miraculous one. As Delegate Benjamin Franklin put it,
"When you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those men, all their prejudices, their passions, their errors of opinion, their local interests, and their selfish views. It therefore astonishes me to find this system approaching so near to perfection as it does."
Do you think our present form of government, as set out in the Constitution, will exist in 200 years? What do you think? Give me a thumbs up if you think it's going to exist, thumbs down if you think it won't. No right or wrong, it's just an opinion. We are 240-ish years into this. Where's everybody else? I got like 3 votes here. All right, a little bit of mixed opinion and stuff. And that's the reality. There is a lot of mixed opinion. There's a lot of, especially, you know, with today's climate and the heated political debates and the divisiveness we see, I think some people have doubts. Some people say we'll pull through. We've had hard times before. And the reality is we don't know. You know, we don't know and stuff. But but there's definitely, this can be a debated topic for sure. Okay, let's go over into, that's the end of the near pod. Let's go over into our notebook and let's start doing a couple more of these questions. How did the framers protect slavery in the Constitution? All right, so in the reading, it talks about the verbiage that they used and stuff. So the third question focuses on the issue of slavery, calls students to grapple with the document's justness as it relates to the compromise over slavery, because that's exactly what it was. You had people for, you had people against, and they were at an impasse. So what we see here truly is when we say compromise in wording, and what's included and what's not included. You know, what's not included is also, you know, and stuff. So it's just as important as what is included. This performance task asks you to explain the position with which they are unlikely to agree. While you are most likely to argue that enshrining slavery in the Constitution is a knock against the document's justness, it is important that you have the contextual knowledge to discuss that. And again, that contextual knowledge is that when we look at things from today's perspective, a lot of things in the past are going to have a negative light, right? We change, we adjust, we progress and stuff like that. So 230, 40 years ago and stuff like that, every Western country had slavery. Does not mean it was right in no way, shape, or form, but it was the norm. It was the norm in the West and stuff. So the anti-slavery movement was coming, but we hadn't really seen actual progression of governments outlawing it. So this was a very contentious topic. It was a very contentious topic that, you know, a good 50% were passionate for and a good 50% were passionate against. And it doesn't justify the compromise, but in order to get the document done, that was the situation that they were in. This could have been and would have been a reason for the document not to pass. And it doesn't mean you have to agree with the document, doesn't mean you have to agree with the points I'm making and stuff, but just to give some perspective of the time of and stuff, that there was a different majority back then. So how did the framers protect slavery in the Constitution? Because it definitely is protected, right? It definitely is. Even if they don't say slavery, they definitely are still endorsing it by giving deadlines and doing a 3/5 count of counting people as less than a full person. So there definitely are problems with how it was originally written in the Constitution, for sure. Hence leading to the Civil War and amendments that we see, the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and further amendments. So the Constitution did not explicitly mention the word slavery to avoid overtly endorsing or condemning the institution. So again, kind of taking this lukewarm approach. However, these provisions indirectly acknowledge and protect slavery's existence. Absolutely. So we see it in the 3/5 Compromise, which is in Article 1, Section 2, determining how slaves would count in representation in the House of Representatives. The Fugitive Slave Clause, so in Article 4, Section 2 within states slaves who escaped, what should happen to them and how should they be returned to their original state. And then the Slave Trade Clause, talking about international slave trade and how it would continue at least until 1808, and then it could be revisited to possibly outlaw it. So again, a concession to the southern states of, at least for the short term, the next 20 years, instead of having slavery continue, and then after that, reapproaching the topic. All right, so let me put, this might not all fit in the chat. By the way, it's number 4. Oh, it cut off at captured in other states. Let me grab that. If captured. Okay, so I'll get the beginning of that sentence. All right, give me a thumbs up once you're good on number 4. Because we definitely see omitting in the Constitution about slavery, but we definitely see then the passiveness and permissiveness of slavery in the Constitution. Even if they don't use the word slave, it is still absolutely there in the original Constitution. Okay, and then the last section, how democratic was the 1787 Constitution? Okay, so in these 7 articles, there is the goal of laying out the responsibilities of each branch, how to make this document official, also how to adjust it, making it a living document. Do you understand what it means by a living document? This is something that is neat about, or makes our Constitution different than others, the ability actually to change it. They changed it actually before they actually ratified it, which means to make official with the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, right? The right to freedom of speech, religion, right to bear arms, the freedom of press, no housing, quartering of soldiers, jury trial, lots of different things that are outlined in that. And then down the road, we have 27 amendments to the Constitution, which show that what was originally written has and can be changed. So has been changed and can be changed. Now it's a rigorous process, but actually the ability to do that is something that we don't always see. So I want to show you a quick video that talks about, why the Constitution is relevant today. All right. And I think it gives a pretty good perspective, as neutral as possible, without taking a conservative or a liberal point of view.
Don't take it personally. We want you to. Here at Stephen Wade Auto Center, you can personalize your car shopping experience.
Why is the Constitution relevant today? Very rarely in human history has there been a society without a government. But what is government? One dictionary lists its first definition of government as such: a group of people who have the power to make and enforce laws for a country or area. Think about that for a second. Is that what you think of when you think about the government? First of all, who are these people who have such a great power? How did they get to power? Why do they have this power? And when did they get it? Government really exists because it forces the people it rules to do what it wants. Government naturally is an enemy to freedom. It has a tendency to grow and accumulate more power. Not only that, but the people who make up our government are easily tempted to abuse their power. They may not always have the interest of everyone when they make decisions. Many in government are likely there for self-centered reasons. If they were elected to join the government, they are tempted to do whatever they can to just get re-elected. If they weren't elected, they're likely to stick around until they die. Basically, government is made up of human beings, and human beings are far from perfect. Even the most beloved leaders in history had great flaws. Which brings me to the Founding Fathers, or Framers, as some people call them. They were the first leaders in the United States government who came up with the Constitution. These guys knew they weren't perfect, and because of that, they knew they should limit their power. In fact, the main purpose of the Constitution is to limit the power of the federal government. Article 1 spells out exactly what the United States Congress can do. If it's not there, they can't do it. Article 2 spells out exactly what the president and his or her staff can do. If it's not there, they can't do it. Article 3 spells out exactly what the Supreme Court can do. If it's not there, they can't do it. Are you noticing a pattern here? All three branches of government have power over each other so that each branch doesn't become too powerful. Article 4 outlines the relationship between each state and the others, as well as the relationship between the states and the federal government. Article 5 outlines how, if there's something you don't like about the Constitution, there's a way to change it. Article 6 forbids a religious test as a requirement for holding a governmental position, says that the United States was responsible for debts it owed from before, and establishes that federal laws and treaties that are constitutional are the supreme law of the land. Article 7 describes how the Constitution is ratified. But things really got groovy when a little later the Founding Fathers decided to add the Bill of Rights, which are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Whereas the original Constitution listed exactly what the federal government could and should do, the Bill of Rights protected the rights of every American, as well as the rights of the states. Rights like the freedom to say whatever you want, the freedom to practice whatever religion you want, freedom of the press, freedom to assemble, freedom to petition the government if you have a problem with the government, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to not be tortured, the right to be judged by a jury of peers, even for certain civil trials, the right to not be locked up forever and to know why you're locked up, the right to have due process if accused of a crime in general, the right to have some privacy, and many others. The 9th and 10th Amendments need special mentioning here. The 9th Amendment says that the Bill of Rights were not a complete list, that just because a right isn't listed doesn't mean you don't have it. The 10th Amendment says that all rights not granted to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to the states or the people. And even after the Bill of Rights, there were additional amendments that further protected the rights of individuals, like the 14th Amendment, which gave the right for equal protection under the law, and many other rights. If you really think about that, that means that there is a lot of stuff that American citizens have a right to do, and there is very little the federal government has a power to do. Until very recently, if the American government didn't agree with something in the Constitution, they would have to get 3/4 of the states to agree to change it. Nowadays, it seems that people just interpret the Constitution in any way they want to. Is the Constitution outdated? Perhaps small parts of it is, but that's what amendments are for. The majority of the Constitution is just as relevant today as it was 227 years ago. Why? Because the idea that a government is meant to have limited power is one of the most revolutionary and progressive ideas in history. The Founding Fathers knew that governments naturally grow in size and power. When this happens, the rights of the governed are at risk. What results is often a tyrannical government that only cares about power. So the Constitution's main purpose since its creation has been to limit government power, while simultaneously protecting individual rights. Liberty is perhaps the most progressive idea to ever exist. It's the idea that you should be able to do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anyone else. If you like having people boss you around and telling you what to do all the time, and then threatening to lock you up or kill you if you don't do what they ask, then perhaps the Constitution is not for you. But for those of you who like a little freedom, you should remember that you only have the Constitution to thank for that.
All right. Brings us to, I think he does a good job. I know it's like simple, but I think that really kind of helps, that it is an old document. It's 240-ish years old and stuff like that. Is it relevant today? Is it democratic? You know, I think though, when you look at the purpose and what it protects us from, that it gives a different perspective, you know, because sometimes it's easy to get caught up on words and what happened 240 years ago. But the fact that this document can and has been changed and is a layer for us to protect us from what we see happening in other countries and stuff is definitely something to consider. Is it a perfect document? It's impossible to have a perfect document because you have imperfect people. As Benjamin Franklin said, you have people who are seeking power, writing documents about power, though it's always going to be flawed. How democratic was the 1787 Constitution? The 1787 Constitution established a democratic framework for the United States, but it had limitations when restricted to the full realization of democratic principles. Over time, though, through amendments and changes in law, the United States has expanded suffrage, meaning voting, you know, and rights of people, and strengthened democratic institutions to more fully reflect the principles of equality and proper sovereignty. The Constitution of 240 years ago doesn't represent the country we have today. This is number 5. All right. But what is neat about how they framed this is, as flawed as some parts are and stuff, is the ability to change it. And we have been able to change it and should be able to continue to change this document with hopes that in 200 years, with the ability to change this document, that it will still be relevant and there to protect us from the overreach of a tyrannical, all-powerful government. All right, how are we doing? We're good? Okay, do we have 1 through 5? So we are done with the notebook, okay? Answering that question of, is the Constitution just? That is a matter of opinion, right? It is a matter of opinion. Because in some ways you can say yes, and I'm sure in other ways there are examples where people are frustrated with the government, they're frustrated with limitations, and they might say no, you know, and stuff. But it is important to remember that just doesn't mean perfect. You know, there is no perfect. There is no perfect government, because perfect is about power. Government is about power. So there's always going to be error. There's always going to be error. And stuff. So the question is, what form of government can you have where you create that balance, like you said in the video, where people have their freedoms, but the government is protecting them? And that is a very hard balance to strike. You can never really find the perfect balance. It's going to constantly maneuver because you have different opinions, right? What I consider freedom might be different than what you consider freedom. What the way or how much we want the government in our lives might vary, you know, and stuff. So hence, welcome to political parties and opinions, right? And stuff. But at the base of it, if we can agree, we need those liberties. We need the ability to speak out. We need the ability to protest against our government, to disagree with our government, to remove people in power, to reelect, you know, to have elections and stuff. We don't want people staying permanently in power. You know, it's a slippery slope once you start giving your freedoms away in exchange for the government doing things. If you look at World War I, if you look at the Cold War, so many countries, people have given up their personal freedoms for promises from the government that just leads to full control. Because once you give up liberties, once you give up freedoms, it's really, really hard. It basically takes warfare, it takes civil war, it takes rebellion to get it back, if you get it back and stuff. That's one of the reasons I taught world history for 10 years and I loved it, because you could learn from other countries. You could learn when people, it's easy for people to say, well, if we just do this, we'll get this. Well, look at these 3 countries and what happened when they did that. Look at this world conflict that happened from that. So easy to say, words have good intentions, but when actually played out, not all ideas are good ideas and stuff. So sometimes you have to be really careful, you know, as we compromise and stuff, what that looks like for what are we giving up in exchange for what we're getting. All right, so you're going to submit that notebook, and then I want to jump over and let's do some Kahoots. All right, so the assessment is 30 questions. It's worth 30 points. And so it's bigger than your quiz, like having 3 quizzes, right? And the Kahoots review is really nice because it's questions. I pulled 10 questions directly off of the test. All right. So We're going to do the Cahoots review, and then I'll give you the review sheet. Or actually, I can give you the review sheet really quick, and then we can do the Cahoots review. Oh, they didn't link it here. All right. Let me go in here. It is on the module page. So if we go to the lesson and recording page, week 8. Week 8. There we go. All right. It's on this page. Let me get the link. It's right here. I also linked the Kahoot. So if you want to go back and you want to do the Kahoots game again, you can after this to review before you take the quiz. All right, go ahead and open that up, please. Let me know that it opens for you. Give me a thumbs up, or maybe just put in the chat. Let me know that it opens. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so it gives you the key vocab from the first 3 lessons in the module, okay? And then broken up the notes by section, okay? So in each section, what is relevant? Okay, the majority of this test or assessment covers the first 3 lessons. I think there's a couple questions that cover this lesson on Constitution, but a lot of this is going into the roles of that federal government that the Constitution sets up. All right, okay, let's jump over. We're going to do our Cahoots. Let me get my Cahoots in here. All right, so start. Okay, get ready. You can get on your phone or you can do it a separate tab, however you want to do it. This is great review, so please participate. All right, please participate. All right, 420-5119, and I'll copy the link. And I'll put it in the chat for you as well. All right, so please join. 10 questions. Great review straight off of the quiz. This is fun for bragging rights, right? All right, awesome. Thank you, Saja. Cute avatar. Oh, I love the avatars. They're so cute. They're so cute. Lena, Ladybug, Tamia, they're so cute. Please join. So you can do it through the code, you can do it through the app, you can do it through the link. Please join. Please join. Awesome. Keep joining, please. Let's go. 25 of us in here. Let's get some more participation, please. Everybody can use a good grade on the final assessment of quarter 1. Angel, look cool. Alicia, you look like you're ready for space. Kenny, you look like you're ready for a Viking fight. The hat is cute. You look like you're a detective. Baby raccoon. Or no, adult raccoon. The avatars are great. Oh, Kayla's so cute. All right, let's get started, okay? Let's get started. Thank you for joining. All right, start. Here we go. Do your best to answer. Remember, it's better to guess than just leave it blank. All right, got a 1 in 4 chance. Here we go. How long do federal judges serve? 4-year term, 8-year term, till the public wants them to leave, for life, till they retire or are impeached. I should say are, not our. Take a guess. 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Majority of you got it. So for life, till they retire or they're impeached. So till they die, till they retire, or if they're impeached for something breaking the law or something like that. Okay. Yeah. So judge positions, they are for life. Okay. And so they are only reappointed when they become vacant. So if a new president comes in and doesn't agree with the judge, they can't just have them removed. They can do that with like ambassadors or cabinet positions, they can be replaced, but judges in particular are for life. And that's because you want the courts to be impartial, right? As much as possible. So if presidents could just come in and remove judges and put new ones in and stuff, that's going to make the courts very, very biased, right? If it's constantly just those aligning with the party in power, because that's constantly shifting. So we want as impartial as possible. All right, so it's for getting it right and also how quickly you respond. All right, so if you know, don't wait to respond. All right, good job, Brooke. We're off to a good start. The cabinet was created by, so who created the original cabinet, okay, which was only 3 originally, now we have 15. Was that Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, George Washington, or George W. Bush? Who originally created the cabinet, that's the different departments within the executive branch. We did talk about this. This was directly off that quiz as well. Take a guess. Who was the first president? George Washington. So George Washington quickly realized, right, that there's a lot of different things. So originally it was military, finance, and diplomacy, okay? And then from there, we've added these other departments. So there's 15 in total now that the president oversees. So agencies that the president oversees to try to just be organized. It's the largest of the 3 branches. So it's a lot of organization. All right, close. Deck. Brooke Sayaja. Anyone's game though. Who is responsible for the federal budget? So who determines the federal budget? Is that Congress, the House, the president, or the cabinet? By responsible meaning who creates the budget, not who approves it, who creates it. Who creates the budget? So who's responsible meaning who creates it? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We did talk about this. We did this lesson. So it is the president. It is the president. So here's where people get confused. So you are right in that Congress approves the budget, but the president, those 15 cabinets that the president oversees, they are the ones who create the budget. So it's under the responsibility of the president to create the budget with the help of the cabinet members. Okay. Then it is sent to Congress to approve it. So who's responsible for the budget? It is ultimately the president. Okay, even though Congress approves it, okay? But who actually makes the budget and, where the money's going to go and this and that is the president, okay? So again, kind of how you interpret that. So if you see this question on the test, when they say responsible, they mean for like creating the budget. That's the president with the help of those 15 cabinet members, okay? All right, standing stay the same. Members of the cabinet are members of Congress and apply for the job, elected along with the president, nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, were chosen by both parties of Congress to represent each party. How do these cabinet members who serve under the president, how do they get their position? So, nominated by the president and then confirmed by the Senate. Okay, so president is misspelled. So I'll go back in and edit these at the end of this game. Okay, so nominated by the president, confirmed by the Senate. All right, so the president can appoint those cabinet positions and fire people at any point during their presidency. So it's not uncommon to see people step down and somebody else, but they have to be confirmed by the Senate because you're hoping again to get someone who is qualified for the position. All right, nice job. What role does the president play in the lawmaking process before bills arrive on their desk? Okay, so we know the president can veto, but before that, no formal role. The president can try to influence members. No formal role. The president is not allowed to influence. The president and the cabinet can introduce bills or can introduce bills while running for president. Wait, like typos everywhere. So no formal role, but the president can influence members of Congress. So basically, the president cannot introduce bills, cannot, while they're running for president and stuff, the cabinet cannot introduce bills, but they can certainly turn to members of their own party or people of the opposite party and say, if you do this, I won't sign it. Or if it doesn't have this, I won't. So they can use powers of influence and persuasion and the threat to veto to influence bills for sure. All right. Who can propose new laws? So who can propose a new law? The president, only the Senate, anyone can, or any member of Congress, which would be the House or the Senate. Any member of Congress, yes. So this is the main responsibility of the legislative branch, aka Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, right? So this is their main responsibility, to introduce and to pass laws. And then they get sent to the president for approval or for veto. All right, we got some switch up here. Ooh, all right, you guys are doing good. Number 7, representation in Congress is determined how. So that means the House of Representatives and the Senate. House population, Senate population. House population, Senate 2 per state. House and Senate are both equal 2 per state. Where House is based on GBT, Senate is population. How is the House and Senate determined? Remember, this was a compromise to get that bicameral. We've talked about this several times. Okay, so House is based on population. So the higher your population, the more representatives you have. Senate is 2 per state. So a lot of you chose House population, Senate population. Senate is the equal across the board, okay? 2 per state. So I don't care if you're Wyoming with barely 1 million people or California with over 40 million, everyone gets 2. House, though, the more your population, per 700,000 people, you get 1 representative, okay? So it's based on population. So it's a compromise. When we talked about equality, how do you determine representation? How do you make that fair? How do you make that equal? And stuff. You could define it 2 different ways. So they did it 2 different ways to try to create more equality in the representation. So the larger states had more say, but also the smaller states wouldn't be railroaded. All right. Here we go. Number 8. All are examples of enumerated powers except. So enumerated means stated in the Constitution. Creation of the post office, regulation of public schools, regulation of commerce and tax, or tax. Which one is not enumerated, stated in the Constitution? And we have gone over this. This is on a quiz. And that is regulation of public schools, okay? Creation of a central post office definitely was stated in the Constitution. Regulation of commerce and tax and regulation of tax. Those are all stated in the Constitution. What is not explicitly stated, enumerated means explicitly written in black and white. That's regulation of public schools, okay? So that's going to be an implied power, implied. So it's not written, but because I'm going to give you money for the public schools, if I'm the federal government, then I have the power to regulate to make sure that you're upholding your end. So it's implied, it is not enumerated, which means clearly stated. All right, Ayesha's got a bit of a lead. Here we go. Nice job, everybody. How can Congress override presidential veto? So they can, but how do they do it? So we did talk about this. The House and the Senate votes 2/3 majority. Both House and the Senate votes 3/4 majority. The House and the Senate vote 2/3 majority, or if they can't, it is what it is. So which is it? Good, a lot of you got this. The House and the Senate votes 2/3 majority. So it has to be both House and the Senate. Instead of 50% or 51%, so just having majority, which would be 51, you have to have 2/3, 66%. And this is really hard to do. So that's why override of presidential vetoes is very, very rare. Okay, I think we got 1 question left. All right, Asia, you're killing it. Nice job, everybody. Brooke, Lena, Ladybug, Angel, good job, everybody. It's great to participate, even if you get it wrong. Where's the judicial branch outlined in the Constitution? Which article? We went over this today. Article 2, Article 1, Article 3, or Article 4. Okay, so that would be the judicial branch. Which article of the Constitution talks about the judicial branch, outlines their responsibilities? Article 3, Article 3. 1 does legislative, 2 does executive, 3 does judicial. All right, very good. All right, let's see who made the podium. Woo-hoo! Here we go. 3rd place. Lena, nice job. Go Tigers. Brooke, nice job. Is that a raccoon? The raccoons. And these are go skeletons. Looks like a Day of the Dead. And honorable mention, Tamia and Ladybug. Nice job, everybody. All right. Woo! So if you guys are looking for a study partner, Ayesha's taking applications. Nice job. Nice job. All right. Back over here. Close the Kahoots. All right. Nice job, everybody. All right. So again, the Kahoots is really helpful because those are questions directly from the test bank. So you're very likely to see those, okay? going through it right now. So these are really good reviews, okay? Use that review sheet. A lot of those are pulled from previous quizzes, but also those checking for understanding questions, right? Which you can find on the review sheet, okay? So definitely don't skip those, okay? So before we let you go, we still have about 15 minutes. I'll let you go a few minutes early, but we want to take a couple minutes and go over a few things, okay? Because this is the end of the quarter and this is the last time I will see you on Monday is that deadline, right? Okay, the 2nd. So what is due this Friday? Module 2, lesson 4, we finished it. So please turn that in ASAP, okay? So you need to review for your assessment. We did the Cahoots review and get that turned in, okay? Both are due by Friday. They're open till Monday though, okay? So just get them done by Monday. There is no extension. That is the extension, okay? So due Friday, they're open till Monday because that is the end of the quarter, all right? If you are behind and you need to get your grade up, here's what is still open, okay? Module 2, lesson 2, notebook, quiz, and project. The superhero project is open till Monday. That is probably the best way to raise your grade. Either if you got a low score on it, redo it, or if you haven't done it, turn that in, all right? Because that's worth 55 summative points. The second would be the module 2 assessment. That's worth 30 points. So not doing those or not doing well on those will have an impact on your grade. So doing well on those is a great way to raise your grade. Module 2, lesson 3, the notebook and quiz. Again, anything summative is going to help you out, okay? Getting a 0 in a summative score, that is not a good idea, all right? And then again, the notebook and then the assessment that we're doing this week, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 assignments that are open till Monday. If you have a low grade, especially doing those summatives and doing them well, you can get a passing grade. Okay. Now, if you have an F, I don't know that you can get to an A with those assignments because you've dropped the ball this quarter, but you can certainly get it up and pass for the quarter. Okay. So there's no excuse not to pass for the quarter. All right. There really is no excuse. Okay. These are all listed in Canvas on the Friday announcement. Okay. So they're listed on the lesson and recording page, and they're also listed in Friday's announcement, which I just posted today. All right. So telling you what to do. Module 2, lesson 2, the notebook. Okay, that should actually say assessment. Let me go in and change that. So both are due Friday, and then the list of what's past due that you can still do is all there. Okay, so anything module 2, lesson 2, anything module 3 or module 2, lesson 3 can be done. All right. We have the time. I want to go back over just really quick the superhero project. All right. So that's in module 2, lesson 2. Like I said, I've had probably 50% of you turn it in, which is great, but honestly, I should have more. Okay. So those of you who've turned it in, awesome. Check your score. If you didn't get a great score, take a look at the rubrics because it means then that you didn't meet certain requirements of the rubrics. Okay. So let me go over those again to help clarify. So if you got, I would say less than a 45, like, you should make changes, resubmit it. Every point you can get honestly will help and stuff. So let's go over the instructions. Okay. So there are 7 roles of president, 7 roles. Okay. And they're all listed down here. So chief of state, chief executive, chief diplomat, commander-in-chief, legislative leader, chief of party, and guardian of the economy. You pick 2 of those roles and you list them on your page, and then you put 2 superpowers to go with them. Now, you're not listing actually what the responsibility is. You list the role. So let's say it's chief of state, okay? Then come up with a superpower that would expand upon or improve that chief of state. So chief of state, these are people who do ceremonies. They're the figurehead, they're like the king or queen, of our country, even though we don't have a king or queen. Okay. They greet people at the White House. It's the most honored position, right? The most honored and respected position. So what would be a superpower that would bring even more respect or representation to that? All right. So it's supposed to be practical in that you're choosing an actual role of president, but you're actually supposed to come up with a superpower, not just list what that role does. Listing what the role is not a superpower. That's where you were supposed to be creative and actually make them a superhero, all right? Where it's not, you're having fun with it. And you do it with the second one. Say you did chief diplomat. So this is the person who goes and, yes, meets with foreign leaders, times of war, and tries to do treaties and stuff. So maybe the superpower is ability to influence, right? Power persuasion. Once a month they can do power persuasion or something, okay? So it actually has to be a superpower. And some of you missed points for that. Okay, then the next thing that you need to do, okay, is you have to create your superhero. Okay, you have to create them. So you could draw them, you could digitally create them, or remember you had this template right here where you could take someone from the template and then you could finish making that superpower, okay, or that superhero. If you use the template, that's totally fine, but you still need to color it in. You need to make it, give it characteristics, okay, kind of have it take form. That's just to help you if you're like me, if you're not artistic, okay, and stuff. So, but you don't just turn in a blank. I've had a couple people do that. You're just turning in a blank superhero, which is not going to help you. All right. You didn't actually do your part. So pick 2 of the 7 roles, 2 superpowers to support those roles. You pick 1 weakness. Okay. So, and again, weakness isn't just actual limitations of it. Come up with an actual superpower weakness. Like what's their kryptonite? Okay. So maybe when they use their power of persuasion, now they can't talk for a whole month. So they have no power of persuasion in any way, shape, or form for a whole month. So come up with a weakness that is a consequence of using or a limitation of the superpower, all right, and stuff. So again, this is where some people just are not actually reading the assignment, okay? And they're just listing, oh, they can't make laws. Well, they already can't do that. So that's not going to count because you're supposed to come up with something that goes with, this is where you're supposed to be creative and not just actually list something, okay? All right, you put all this in presentation form and give the superhero a name. Okay, so these are examples. All right, so people again are turning in things and they're like, well, I don't know what you mean. Well, I went over the instructions, you watched the video, and there's even examples on the submission page, right? So big, colorful, all right? Put the superpowers very clearly and the weakness around them, all right? I don't want Google Slides. So it can be a Google Doc. It could be a piece of paper that you take a picture of. So if you want to do it, you know, like just do it by hand and stuff. And then you could do it on a normal, like notebook size sheet of paper and take a picture of it, but make it look like a poster. You're presenting, okay? And stuff. So the points worth 55 points, okay? And stuff. So 5 points for having a clear just title of the superhero. I can't tell you how many people didn't do that. Like what the heck? Look at the rubrics. Draw or create your superhero. They need to be colorful. So to get the 10 points, you need to be colorful. 1 clear weakness and how it correlates to government. So when they use this superpower, then this happens, or here's the limitation on it, and it needs to relate to the superpower of that correlates with government, okay? 2 superpowers that coordinate with the 2 roles, 10 points each, so 20 points total for that. And then 10 points for creativity. And what I mean by that is make it look good, okay? I don't want a boring poster. Make it colorful, make it look good. All right, this is worth a lot of points. So yeah, you got to put in a little bit of effort. All right, so like, I'm not artistic. That doesn't mean you can't make it colorful. Use different color pens, use a highlighter, do it digitally then, you know, like whatever you need to do. You have a real wide gamut of what you can do. All right, so 55 points total. So if you got a lower score or if you haven't done it, please get this done. Make that your priority because that's a quick way to get them up. Second, make sure you do that module 2 assessment. That's 30 points. So not doing it, getting a 0 on that is definitely, you're going to drop real quick. All right. Questions at all? Any questions? All right. Yes, I can go back over to that. So this is question 3. How is the Constitution constructed in the government? So, or constructed in the Constitution. So there's 7 articles. In the first 4 articles, they basically lay out the 3 branches and then the relationship to the states. First one is the legislative branch, second executive branch, third judicial branch. Okay. And you could literally do this if you want. Okay. Yes, go ahead, Ladybug.
Honestly, for the project, I was scared when I did my superheroes because it was on a digital website on the computers. And when I emailed you about it, he was like, make sure that it's your actual characters. And then when I looked back at my characters, by the time I finished the project, I was like, this do not look like something that somebody could make. And so that's why I had added the website of what I use so you could see that you actually build a hero.
And I don't mind if it's something where you can construct it by making selections. But it just needs to be an original. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want you just Googling superheroes and then copying and pasting off Google images. That's what I don't want. Okay, yeah. Other questions, comments? Okay, so really quick for your exit ticket, all right, in the chat, when is all Q1 assignments closing? The 7 that are open, what is the date that they're closing? Yes, keep filling it up, please. Keep filling it up. October 2nd. I am not extending. Okay, I'm not extending. So October 2nd, please get your work in. Please, please, please get your work in. Okay, you've had a lot of opportunities. We do a lot of stuff in class. I've gone over things. All right, and it's time to, it's time to crunch and get your stuff in. All right. And with these 7, if you do well and stuff like that, you can get at least, if you're at a 0, you can get it at least to a D. All right. If you're at a 50, you can maybe get it to a C. I can't guarantee. It depends how well you do on these things, but absolutely you can pass. But no, if you have an F, can you get to an A with this? Probably not. All right. But that's where you've got to do the work through the quarter. Okay. But absolutely the ability to pass. So no one should not be passing. I want you to get as good a grade as possible, but you have to turn in work throughout the quarter. Doing it on the last day of the quarter, it doesn't work. Yes, the project really does help. Again, doing well and getting max points. So if you did the project and you didn't get max points, go back and see where I docked you and make adjustments and turn it back in. Okay, because those are summative points. So they're going to quickly have an impact on your grade. All right, I'm going to stop recording.